recorded a video the other day without any sort of intro, so figured I'd do that now. I got a couple of questions from like coworkers and friends and family, so I put together a video with a friend of mine, just going through like a couple of questions. Let me know what you think. Definitely, you know, comment if you have some input or more questions for me. All is appreciated. But let me know what you think. Oh, one more thing. I'm down 44 pounds now. I think the first video was 28 or something like that. So I slowed down a little bit, but still going. Just figured I'd share that too. Now go watch. In the past, I've tried a million different things. I think over time I tried low carb, no carb. I feel like I tried paleo for a little bit. And I think for a little bit I even tried like South Beach or whatever. All of it I don't think I stuck with for more than a month, like best case scenario. As far as exercise goes, I don't think I've really had anything in particular. I think maybe I did yoga for a couple of weeks, and honestly I still want to get back into that, but I don't think I really did anything else along those lines other than just going to the gym, or actually I guess trying to think hiking was going to solve my problems and then immediately falling apart once it hit winter. I did that once or twice. Through all of that, I never really actually noticed anything. I had really no loss there, except, and that's sort of the most important thing that led me to where I am now, one time that I did just straight calorie restriction and calorie counting in MyFitnessPal. That is the only time in the past 10 years probably that I actually lost weight consistently. Unfortunately with that, I think I eventually dropped my calories down to 1,200, which was the way I used to be. It was too much, and I fell apart. There was one time that, in fact, even recently, I kept referring back to, I kept thinking, oh, I've done this before, I got this, no problem. And that was when I worked in Canada, like 10 or 12 years ago for a summer. It was pretty obvious as to how it happened. I rode a bike literally 10 miles to work, 10 miles back, and I worked at a lumber mill for 8 hours a day. So, of course, I lost weight, and I didn't really do anything out of the ordinary aside from just that job. And that, of course, is why once I came back, maybe a year after I returned, it all came back. I didn't really establish any like rules or practices or habits doing that. If I'm looking back, you know, a couple of years ago, really not that long ago from where I am now, and the way I eat, I sometimes look back with astonishment at like how many calories I must have been eating. Like I'm set to like 1,600 calories right now, 1,500 sometimes. I don't know, I'm kind of toss up there. But I was easily surpassing 3,000 calories, probably 4,000 some days. Like getting a whole pizza and having it gone by morning, like in addition to drinking on top of that, just really crazy stuff. Like I think it's easier to do that with takeout, so like Chinese and stuff like that I was really bad with, but I was doing just as poorly with stuff from the grocery store, just being completely irresponsible and not paying any attention at all. Even in all of that, it feels like to me it wasn't binge eating disorder or something like that. It wasn't where I was just like sitting down with something and just eating for 3 hours, and that was where the damage was done. It was always more over the course of the day. All of my intake was higher than it should have been, and no one big like session, I guess. It was really just a constant problem. Some of this I think I used to tie back to some like childhood things I had growing up. In fact, my money problems, I did the same thing. I was blamed on some difficulties growing up, things with my mom. But I think I got to the point now where it's like, I don't know, it's kind of like if you're 31 years old and still blaming your mom, traumatic or whatever as your childhood might have been, it's time to grow up. You can't just put that blame on other people still. I think plenty of people out there have had problematic childhoods and made it through it. And sometimes that takes some help, but I'll maybe get into some of that in a later video. All that said, I think this time has been a little bit different, and part of that is because I think I kind of experienced this when I quit smoking. Even though for, you know, a year or two or whatever it was, I was kind of on and off. But generally, I'd say that for the most part, I was off of the whole pack a day thing. And that is, I wanted to get through it. I was done. And I think a lot of people might say that they want to quit or they want to get through whatever it is, but it's something that's hard to explain when you get to that point where you just have to say to yourself, like, okay, this is really it. And I think that got to me this year. I think to some degree, honestly, thinking about, you know, 31, I think my dad had heart attacks by this age, multiple. There's a lot of things that I haven't yet done with my life, and I don't want to be dead in 5 years, you know. There's a lot I want to do. Touching on moderation again, I think I'd stress the importance of that, not only in something like this, although I think that has been sort of the key thing for me this time around. I applied the same thing with exercise and, you know, like I think I've mentioned before, calorie restriction, not overdoing it. I think even going back to January of this year when I really kicked this off, I was going to the gym every day. And yeah, I technically lost more weight that month, but it was just totally not sustainable. I was never going to stick to that. So I think pulling that back to 5 out of 7 days a week, I've been maintaining that and not having a problem with it. I don't have a problem if I want to switch up the days or whatever. Generally maintaining has been more important than skipping one day here or there, because that's okay. There's no problem with that. And while moderation is really key here, and I keep stressing it, it does not work everywhere. So I've sort of made reference to my drinking or smoking and things like that. At least for now, I cannot touch it. There have been a couple of times where I've had a beer or something like that, but it is way too easy to fall into, well, why not 4 more? Or why not just have one cigarette, and then next thing you know, well, you're having 1 a week or 2 a week or something like that. Certain things, I think, at least for me, moderation is not going to do it. But I think as long as you know that going in, you can still control that a bit. And speaking to those specifically, I think for maybe 10 years I was smoking a pack a day, possibly even more if I was drinking or doing something else. And drinking, I think I didn't want to admit it for so many years, but looking back, it is so unbelievably clear that I was a full-on alcoholic, drinking out of boredom, but also just that's what you did. And it got to the point where I talked about it with some friends, and I think the moment that it hit me that drinking alone or drinking an entire bottle of liquor, that's hard to take when you really step back and look at yourself. And so yeah, I guess I would say I was in a pretty dark spot with that, which is why I try to just keep myself away from it, because I'm still not at the point where I trust myself with it. I think having gone through all of this now in the past, it's only been 6 months now, I have more confidence than I've ever had in my entire life. I think especially people who've been fat for some portion of their lives feel like you're constantly defeated by it. And I feel like people have made reference to this elsewhere. But of all the things I've ever had to gain control over, that was the hardest. And I'm not through it yet, I know that, but I genuinely feel like I can do anything at this point, just because I've been able to finally, after like effectively 20 years, I have a grasp on this now. And with that being the hardest thing in my life, all the other things like the drinking and smoking, whatever else, I feel like it's nothing to me. It has basically improved my life across the board. There's still plenty I have to work on, but it all feels so simple relative to what I've gone through. I look back to even just a year ago, and I'd wake up, drink coffee all day long, eat a big breakfast, and then a big lunch, and then a bigger dinner, and then drink half a bottle of liquor. And that was my day. No exercise in there, no like social activity, nothing. It was just like, that was pretty much day in and day out. And now I wake up very early in the morning, have a light breakfast, and then later in the evening I'll go to the gym for, you know, half an hour to an hour, and that's it. I get to bed early. I actually start feeling like I'm sleeping better. If I were to look back at that same time a year ago, I think I was averaging 4 hours of sleep at best, and then waking up feeling like I didn't sleep at all. It's a complete life change. So, hopefully that was helpful or interesting to some of you out there. Definitely please, you know, subscribe if you find this stuff interesting. I'll continue doing this, try and get a better schedule going, because I know I really didn't have, you know, it's been like a month since the last video. But I've been doing a lot of hiking lately, so maybe I'll record some more of this. Let me know. I'm open to new ideas here with what you want to see on this channel. So until next time, take care.